this is the latest acquisition. It is, I believe, a somewhere in the mid to late 30s Caterpillar 22, and it last ran in 1978. They used it to plow snow in the blizzard of '78 in Indiana. And I guess after that they parked it and it never started again. So this come from a fella who I have kind of become friends with in the recent times. He bought the D2 off of me that I had, about a year ago. I think I sold it. But he got it from a place in Indiana, and it was sunk in a barn up to that line on the blade. It had sat there since '78. So I tried to do a little research on these things, and there's not a whole lot of information out there. I think there was around like 15,000 22s built, but this is like your predecessor to an R2 and a D2, and I don't know if there's another one in there or not, but I think they're a 3-speed transmission, a little different. They got the turning brakes on the right and a foot clutch on the left. This one was probably originally an ag crawler that somebody fitted this blade to. It's what is it? What do you got? La Plant Choit. I'm sure somebody would know how to pronounce that correctly. Made in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But there's no way that this was like built for this crawler. But anyways, so fella I got it off of, Mike, he basically thought it was cool, didn't want to see it get scrapped, so he bought it. And then I think he got about halfway home and decided that he didn't need another project. I also didn't need another project, but here we are. So we did a little bit of trading, a little bit of cash, and this thing came home with me today. So it's a little funky getting it on the trailer, slid off the ramps once, but we got it without too much issue. But it's honestly, overall, it's a pretty straight tractor. You know, the fenders are decent, the side covers down here, they're pretty good. He said he didn't see the side curtains, and I'm not even sure if all of them even came with side curtains, but he didn't see side curtains there. I've got the cover for the spark plugs on the other side, but this guy is crusty. Like, couldn't get the fuel caps off, can't get the radiator cap off. It just sat in a shed, and I think through all the years of it, you know, getting hot, getting cool, getting hot, getting cool, you know, this chassis has sweat so much that just everything's crusty. So I think I can get it to run. He said he messed with it a touch. I do know the engine's free. It turns over, it doesn't really seem to have much of any compression. I know he said he popped the Magneto loose and he thinks it's got spark now. Not sure if that's timed correctly. That's not the correct Magneto. It should have, I think, a big Eisman that fits in there. But let's get this thing cleaned up, and from there we'll just start wrenching on it, I guess. But unfortunately, a raccoon has made home at some point. So gonna have to get some gloves and get that cleaned out. Not good when you find bugs living in there. It was a magazine. Okay, so there's no bolts in this cover, Okay, looks like they were adjusting the steering clutches. Probably why that was off. I'm trying to remember how these wear. If these wear similar to a D2, we should have quite a bit of adjustment left, I believe. But I don't remember. But it looks pretty nice down in that housing. Really dry. Actually, this cover being loose probably helped with that a lot. Didn't trap any moisture in there. All the holes are kind of buggered up, and I'm guessing I just vacuumed up half the bolts that go in there. But what I'll do, I'll just buy some new bolts because they're going to be nasty. We'll figure out what it is from here and just replace them. And got most of the ick off this thing. It's a whole lot more appealing looking now. So let's degrease it and get it washed. I'm going to get the loose stuff knocked off first before I put degreaser on it. Okay, we got the main mess kind of blasted off, so we'll hit it with some degreaser now. I'm curious if this is the original cat paint, but it is in terrible shape. All done washing it off. It's dried off for a couple hours now. It looks better. Doesn't really look any worse, so that's a plus. Spun this around so any water that got in there dried out. Tried not to get the gauges, but they still got some moisture in them. But that's okay. So let's try to wiggle this thing in the shop. I think I can just push on the dozer blade with it, and we can walk it back in there. I'm thinking kind of towards the left here. Well, while we're sliding around with the skid loader, we might as well let the blade down. Well, that's great. Thing sure is bigger once you have it inside. I'm gonna knock this blade off. I'm gonna hang on to it. I'm not gonna get rid of it, but get the blade off of it, and then it'll make it easier to work on it, easier to crank start it, all that happy stuff. But yeah, cool. It's cleaned up, got it in the shop. I think right now, because nothing wants to really move and nothing wants to turn, I'm going to thoroughly go over this thing with some penetrating oil, and we'll revisit this project in a few days or maybe weeks. Well, working on this thing, I've been putting the WD-40 on everything, and I ended up heating up and putting PB Blaster, not WD-40, on everything, and the caps here are loose. So let's look at these for the first time together. I'm really afraid with all the corrosion along the edges of this big tank that's going to be rotted out, but maybe this little guy won't be. That's a good sign. Doesn't look too bad. Come on. That's not great. But it could be worse. It's gonna need cleaned. Looks like there's gravel in there. I'm guessing that's mostly old fuel that varnished and then the varnish dried out. I'm guessing. So these tractors were originally designed to be able to run on like kerosene or tractor fuel or whatever. So this little tank would have been considered a starting tank. You would have put gasoline in it, and then the big tank you would have put your lower grade fuel once your engine was up to temperature. So, but they didn't really make them separate tanks. They are separate tanks, but that one is completely welded through the big one, which is neat, but kind of a pain. Let's look in the big, it's hot still. Hoping this one looks better. Okay. A little smoky in there. Oh, nice. That's not bad at all. Cool. So that's the other tank right there, the bottom of it. Awesome. I don't think I'm gonna run it on these tanks until I have a chance to like completely clean them up, but that's a really good sign. I'm guessing it might end up with a bunch of pinholes from all the rust around the cradle, but that's a good start. I think I can get this radiator cap off now. Been soaking overnight. Should get turned off here. Okay, let's see what's in here. Not great looking, but it has some moisture. Come on, focus. Yeah, that's not ideal. But with the moisture that's in it, I'm gonna say it's got antifreeze. And, ooh, that's ugly. I bet that doesn't cool real well. Well, anyhow, the Mike was telling me when he unloaded this at his house that it was dripping some green antifreeze. So something somewhere has got to be, it's got to have some antifreeze in it. And I don't see anything that's frozen busted. Now, let's look over, here you go. The core in this thing looks really good, front and back. So I'm guessing that it's probably decent. And I'll bet we can get some in there and it'll at least run and cool a little bit. All right, it's been a few days and I've got a little bit of time here, so I'm going to work on this blade, getting it off. You can kind of see there, this is just all flat iron, torched out, welded on. I don't know what this came off of, but like I said, it doesn't belong on this machine. And it's held in there well. Got it right there. Even these cylinders are cobbled up. It's just, you know, the cylinder probably would have mounted right here to something originally, and then they just got all this welded onto the back. It's a mess. Whew. Yeah, I was worried about that. I was hoping that this track frame still had like all the factory holes in it and they were somehow able to use those. But no, they had to torch them out, make them bigger. So that's kind of a bummer. Not the end of the world. You could weld that back shut and, you know, make it correct again. That's not that big a deal, but it's really did a disservice to this thing, cobbling this blade on there. But I guess I'm sure they were needing something to push dirt, and this is what they had. So I guess you can't fault them for that. There we go. And the more I tinker around with this thing, the more I'm kind of liking it. I really like how it looks. I like the wide. So they made a narrow and a wide version of these, and this is the wider version. And really the only difference was they flipped these sprockets on the outside, so it's like, I don't know, maybe 8 inches wider total. But they put these wider browser pads on, and I don't know, the thing just looks cool. I kind of like how crusty it looks and stuff, so. I don't know, maybe it'll stick around, we'll see. But let's get these cylinders and hoses and stuff off. I have no desire to ever put that cobbled up blade back on, so we'll get all that out of the way. It'll make it easier to work on. Some dollar store pie pans are pretty handy for stuff like this to catch that oil dripping. Hopefully these don't really have any oil left in them. It drained out over the lap. Nope, they got oil. Wishful thinking, I guess. Try not to make a mess, but don't usually work out that way. Maybe I could get a bigger wrench. That would help, I'm sure. Nah, it's not the wrench, it's the operator. Ew, water in there. I am kind of glad they put these unions in here, though. It makes it nice. First fastener I'm going to take loose. Let's see if any of this penetrating oil has done any good. Ooh, that'll work. Right back where it belongs. There you go. Well, this isn't perfectly ideal, but I scrounged around, and this 90 and 45 are all I really got, with a couple plugs to seal this thing off, so it'll work for now. If I keep this machine around, I would like to put like Pioneer style couplers on it so you could pull plow or a disc with it. So these will come, this will come off here anyways in that circumstance. Well, it's officially been a few weeks or a month, I don't know. But I think it's time to pull these spark plugs out of here and see what the cylinders look like inside. Now there's number 4. It might be an oil burner. It's got a fair bit of carbon on there, a little oily looking, but some of that could have wicked in from the penetrating oil we had. Same story there, carboned up a little bit, but we're not seeing any rust, so that's good. Same on number 2, gap's kind of closed up, but looks all right. And number 1, they all look very similar, so that's a good sign. Okay, we got the borescope out here, and let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so that's right at top dead center on number 1, pretty close. So let's look at number 2 first. Whoop. Oh, valves don't look too bad. Really thick edges on them, so that's good. Let's see if we can look down in here. Yeah, we got some light pitting on the cylinder walls, but nothing terrible. Top of that piston don't look too bad. Little bit of surface rust on there. See if we can look around at the top. Yeah, not too bad in there. You can see where it's been turned a little bit. So you're seeing some schmutz on the cylinder walls. Look at number 3. Well, it looks pretty good, really. All things considered. Yeah, not much moisture buildup in there at all. It's kind of surprising. I figured you'd see some more condensation. Valves in that one look pretty good yet. There's a fair bit left to them. Got this here, some buildup. I don't know if that's from a leaking head gasket over the years or what's going on there. Okay, I'm going to turn the engine just a little bit to get those other 2 cylinders. Now we should be able to look in 1 and 2. That looks pretty good. For old junk that's been sitting this long, that's not bad. And then number 4. Some flakes on there. Let's see. Yeah. You know, that looks pretty darn nice in there. This is good news. See if we can see some. Yeah, those valves are thick. Both of them. And go back to the number 1. Those valves are, yeah, those look nice too. Cool. Well, they all look pretty good in there. I'm going to give a couple of shots of penetrating oil just to give it something to get down around the rings. That way, once we get to cranking this thing over, there's a good shot that the rings will kind of pop loose and we'll get a little bit more compression out of it. Because turning it over by hand now, there's hardly any. I'll spin it over a few times just to get that worked in. I don't hear the impulse really clicking on the Magneto, so that's not a great sign. It's been about 3 weeks since I put that penetrating oil in these cylinders, and I got a couple other projects I had been working on, but today it's not real nice looking outside. We've got snow in early November, so I think it's a good day to be in here with the heat on and see if we can get this thing running today. I don't think it's gonna fight us, but we'll see. How this is tight. Oh, that's just kind of barely on there. Get that guy off. I think these could come with this style of air cleaner, but this one, I mean, being red, the clamps got yellow on it, but this may have come off like a Farmall tractor or something. I'm not sure, but I think this might have been the original style that it came with, or may have had just a mushroom cap. I'm not sure. You know, leave a comment. See if all our penetrating oil let these bolts come out. You know, I'm kind of looking at this. I don't know if these are designed to take all the way loose or not. They've got these slotted holes. So I'm thinking they just need to come loose and they'll come off. Can't really see up in there, but that's my guess. So we'll just get them loose and they might come off. Never worked on one of these, so that would be new to me. I don't know if we'll be as lucky on these front ones. It's all going into the casting. Hopefully they come right out. Oh, penetrating oil works. They're wet all the way down in the threads. Oh geez, that's perfect. I do give some credit to, these are probably a better bolt than you can buy today. A little higher quality. They're not as likely to snap off. Get our handy piece of stovepipe off there. That's, you know, maybe we'll leave it for nostalgia. I think this should just come off now. There we go. Alright, yeah, so that is how that worked. They're just a piece here, and they may be, like, they didn't want to come off all the way. So there's a good chance that that's like flared at the end or something, so the bolt won't come out, but that's a nice design. And then they just hook up under this lip on the fuel tank. It's nice how heavy duty all that is built. Well, let's take a little bit better look under here. I mean, it looks pretty decent. Get this mud dauber nest out of here. One thing I was kind of concerned about was this exhaust manifold. So if I didn't already mention, these tractors can be run on gasoline or tractor fuel, kerosene kind of concoction, similar to other machines I've had in the past. But this box area right here is basically like a heat valve. And what you do is you take these two nuts off. This can slide out slightly and you can turn it, and what it'll do is it will get the exhaust gases and it will route around all of the intake, which will heat the intake up, and it'll help that tractor fuel, kerosene, you know, less volatile fuel to become more volatile and burn easily in the engine. I'd have to look at the manual. I'm not sure which position that, I mean, it's on position 1, but I'm not sure which one was which on these. But overall, this manifold looks in really good condition. There's a little issues on it here and there, but this is totally salvageable by me. So if we do end up restoring or fixing this thing up mechanically, that's a nice piece that is no longer available, and there's plenty to work with here. But it looks like the water neck is pretty good. Yeah, everything looks decent. let's pop this valve cover off, see what's under there. Pretty serious hardware to be holding a valve cover on. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Minimal corrosion underneath even? Yeah, that's awesome. I'll get you in here a touch closer, but this all looks really nice. Minimal corrosion. There's a little bit very back here on that guy, but everything else looks pretty nice. So let's see if we can compress these. Well, actually, let's just crank the engine over and see if anything's sticky, but they're got nothing really loose. Well, nothing there is sticking. Everything's moving freely. And if you could hear it, the Magneto impulse is starting to work now. So there's even fire. You can see it jumping here. Let's see if you can catch it. So that's great that we are making spark. However, Mike, the guy I got this off of, he said he pulled the cover off the Magneto. So I'm assuming here, because he mentioned he could see the gears, and I'm not entirely sure that it's timed correctly. So let's take that apart, verify how clean everything is, and we'll make sure the timing is correct. This is a Fairbanks FMJ style Magneto, and it's not the correct Magneto for this crawler, but it is one I'm familiar with on other machines. So I'm just gonna time it how I would do those. So when you do that, you crank your number one cylinder up to top dead center on the compression stroke. So generally you can just feel the air coming out as it's coming upwards. But in our case, we can watch the valves too, so that's helpful. So we're coming up on our compression stroke. Little piece of aluminum wires, usually handy to feel where the piston is at on the stroke. Still coming up, up, till you're right at top dead center. It's about right there somewhere. I'm sure there's timing marks on this thing, but we shouldn't need it since this engine has already been running in the past. We can hope that it was timed correctly then. I was able to unearth the timing marks down in here. So right here we're TC1 and 4 with a large indent, and then we have this indent here on the front cover. Those are our timing marks, and where I had it is dead in line. So we should be good to open up that Magneto. Everything in this cap here is just some carbons. So what we're looking for the timing is back in here. So we'll pull this whole large cover off. Try not to tear this gasket. There we go. Yeah, it's a little crusty in there, but not really bad. It don't look too bad at all. All right, before we really get into that, I want to check the breaker points gap here, and we should be at 20 thousandths on these. All right, gotta verify that we're up on the top of the lobe, and it looks the case. make sure that they are discharged. Don't get bit. And 20 thousandths feeler gauge here. They're just a touch wide, but nothing bad. Gonna hit these with a file while I'm in here. Honestly, everything else don't look too bad in there. I'm gonna put some oil on the felt here. I just like using a little 3-in-1. Additionally, something I like to do is just give a couple shots of WD-40 in there. You don't need to drown it, but it'll help with future moisture problems. Okay, so what we're trying to do here, there's even a little sticker still in this cap, is we've got a clockwise rotation. So from the drive end, this is turning clockwise. So we want to line up that, there's usually a little beveled gear or a gear with a dot in it on there, like a tooth. And you want to line it up on this one, since it's clockwise rotation, we want it lined up with the groove here on this gear that's a C. And number 1 on these magnetos, generally you want it to be set at about the 10 o'clock position, about right here. So looking at this guy, our beveled tooth is down here at about the 5 o'clock position. So if you rotate the engine reverse, it should bring it back up to where we want it. So here's the beveled tooth. We want to get that beveled tooth basically straight up. And with the beveled tooth straight up, we want our C to be straight down. And we can put this back on. And I'll put 2 screws in it, and then we can just check and verify where it belongs. So now to verify that our timing is correct, I'm gonna rotate it backwards just a little bit more. What I'm gonna do is reset that impulse on the magneto. And I'm gonna roll it forwards. So right there is our top dead center, and we should be able to run just past, and the impulse should fire. But that's not the right, is that the right guy? Okay, it took me a minute here to do some pondering, because this rotor is pointing at where it should be over here. This rotor should be pointing here to cylinder 1, and then, you know, your firing order, you know, continued from there. But this engine, I don't know if it might be because this magneto is not the correct magneto for this, and the coupling doesn't line up 100%. They're using this position as the number 1 cylinder. So they're going 1, what do we got here? 1, 3, and then 2, 4. 1, 3, 2, 4 must be the firing order on this engine. That's how they got it set up here. So I guess that's all right. Let me put this piece here back on, and we'll verify the firing order, that everything's hitting correctly, and go from there. But I think that's just because this is not the correct magneto, and they're just, because it's what you're working with, as long as the plugs are in the right order and the internals of the magneto are timed correctly, you can, you know, theoretically use whatever position you want on this cap. But generally your top left is your number 1. It's even molded into the piece. So kind of threw me off there for a second, but we should be good. Should see a spark down here. This is the number 1 plug wire. Get the impulse set. Yep, there you go. So we are set up on number 1. That's how it's supposed to be timed on this engine with the incorrect magneto. So looking good so far. We've got ignition, and it's timed correctly for sure. Under the valve cover looks good. I think what I'm gonna do before we keep cranking it over anymore is I'm gonna crack all the drain plugs on this thing, and if it's got any water and condensation in it, that should all be settled towards the bottom right by those drain plugs, and we can drain it out before we start stirring up anything else. It's a little snug under here. This is the, I believe I'm looking at the bell housing. And this should be dry, I think. Like, I don't think it's a wet clutch in these, but there could still be water. I'm not particularly interested in draining any oil out. But if it's got any water in it, we could get that out of there. Nope, bone dry. A little greasy, but nothing in that clutch compartment, so that's good. Hopefully the rear main of the engine was doing good. I don't know if anybody's real familiar with these. Should this lower spring be loose like this? Should it float around? It's got a little bit of play in it. I don't know if that's just like a secondary helper spring, if the first ones get overloaded, or if that's... I guess it kind of looks like if you would torque the engine, this one would tighten up as the tractor tried to pull up off the tracks. That might be what this is. Up next, we've got our engine oil pan drain. Ugh, and it's pretty crusty looking, so let me grab a torch. And I got a little wax. Hopefully we can meld up into there. I don't know if you can hear that. There's oil boiling in there. Or something. We got it warm. Something's in there gurgling around. Alright, we'll let that cool for a minute. Alright, try this again. Oh, there's my knuckle skin. There we go. Oh yeah, there's a little water. Actually, I'm gonna catch that with something. I'm curious how much is in there. There we go. Now we can measure it and verify that it's water and not coolant. Yeah, I don't think it's much. Ooh, some sludge in there, that's for sure. Okay, that's mostly oil, I think. Let a little come out. This layer of sludge was not that thick, and there was not that much water in it, so. But I think it's good to take a little bit out the bottom like that, just to make sure we're not stirring it all up in there. All right, let's move on to the transmission and then maybe clutch housings. Here is our transmission drain. I'd be surprised if you didn't see some condensation settled out in this. Mainly just tar. Nothing too bad coming out of there. These should be the clutch compartment housings, and they should be dry. Yep, I'm gonna leave these plugs out just because, well, I don't know if they're dry or not. I think there's just that much buildup in there. Let me grab something to pick it out. All right, well, we'll let them drip out. moisture. All kinds of goodies. Just a layer of crust in there they wouldn't drain past. But from what I understand, these shouldn't have anything in them, so we're gonna let them completely drain out. Let's check out the right side here. I imagine it's similar. Same layer of film, but it doesn't seem like this side's really got any oil or water in it, so that's good. I'm gonna crack these final drives loose. Yeah, doesn't appear to be much water in there, so we'll just seal that back up. Give this guy a check. A little chunky, but looks decent otherwise. No water. That left clutch housing is still just slightly dripping, but I'm gonna leave it open and leave this pan under here. The ignition's now taken care of. We should be good there. We don't have any stuck valves. All the oil seems to be okay. Not any water in it. Got that stuff drained out. The fuel system is probably the next thing we need to tackle here. These have a fuel pump, a mechanically driven fuel pump here. And I think for the sake of just getting this thing running, I'm going to bypass this. And I'm actually going to bypass the fuel tank as well. And my reasoning for that is this has some slime running down the front of the engine here. So that makes me think that it probably already has a leak in it somewhere. And if we use this and it leaks in the diaphragm, I would guess that it would pump gasoline into the engine, which, depending on the rate of how fast it does that, can be a problem, or might help. We could flush the inside out a little bit. But I'm guessing that with this sitting this long, there's no way that this diaphragm is still good. At least I'm not going to trust that it's still good. And the reasoning that I am going to currently bypass this fuel tank is all of the corrosion down here on each side is probably causing some pinhole somewhere. And I would like to fix this correctly and pull this tank off and clean all that up and fix any holes, because the inside of the tank is pretty nice. But it's currently sat for so long that there's really no volatile gases left in this thing. And it's a whole lot easier to work with in its current state. And I can just check for holes with air pressure or with water. And if I introduce gasoline into that, now we've got a mixture that's more volatile in there again, and we got to get the volatile fumes back out. And I think it's just easier to leave this alone for now. So I'm going to set up a pup tank, and we're going to start it off of that. But I'm going to pull the carburetor off, and we're going to go through that and just check it out. Give us our best bet to get this thing going. I'm guessing it's clean inside, but you never know. If some old fuel got in there or something, it kind of tarred it up. Start by taking this fuel line off. It's pretty massive considering the size of the engine. And there is some fuel coming out of there, so this is probably good that we're cleaning it. Then it looks like just a couple nuts up here, and we can probably pop it down off the manifold along with this old rubber connection here. See if we can get these clamps to loosen up. Oh yeah. The penetrating oil helped here. See if we can cut this off. Oh man, we scratched the paint. It's no good. Yeah, this will come off a lot easier. by just peeling this off. That was the original from 1937 or not. And try to see if we can get these nuts to come loose. I'm afraid that they're not going to. And I'm gonna get a little heat in there on those. I think these are brass nuts. Well, whatever they are, the heat sure helped them out. If we can get back to this one in the back. It's something I've noticed with all Caterpillar stuff is they don't leave you a ton of room. At least, you know, like these small crawlers. It looks like there's maybe just a couple little pins holding this air cleaner on here. Maybe that'll give me some more room to work. Okay, I see. It's not the way I thought it was, but gives us a lot more room. By pins, I was referring to this bolt holding that. But I should probably get that fixed correctly or something. I guess these are both just sitting in there, but it should be tightened with this here. Anyways, that gives me a whole bunch more room to get this carburetor off now. Okay. Off of here. I still have to remove this choke linkage down here, but the pin's kind of seized in there, so I'll have to work at that. Here we can get to that cotter pin now. I wish you had smell-o-vision because the fuel that's in this carburetor is pretty rancid. Aha! There we go. Here's a better look at that mixer valve. So this handle here, you pull and turn. Of course, the valve is seized up, but that handle comes through and up this way and into this mixer valve, so that runs through either your pony tank, which would be this line, or this is going to be your main tank. So when you run distillate fuel, you would start it on that pony tank and it would be gasoline through here, and then once you got it hot, you'd switch it over and it would pull that distillate fuel through here and then around and into the carburetor. Okay, so let's be gentle with this thing. So what we're working with here is kind of a large bowl Zenith. This is the same carburetor that you've seen on the JI Case LA that we worked on, the Alice Chalmers UC that we worked on. It's a pretty big carburetor for this engine. Cubic inch wise, but I want to minimally just take the bowl apart and check to make sure all our passages and stuff are clean. I don't want this full of rust or something, and with it sitting as long as it did, there's a chance that it has a fair bit in it. Yeah, it's not looking great so far, a little crusty all around, some tar in it. This might be a little rough inside. I at least need to keep it intact enough to make a pattern from it, because I do not have any of these gaskets laying around. Not terrible inside, but could use a little love. This is definitely in bad enough shape that it's good that we're taking it apart. But overall, it doesn't look bad. But it was not going to run well. It would probably have issues, would need choke. So I'm gonna finish taking this thing apart and cleaning it up, and I will come back as I'm putting it together. I've got everything pretty well cleaned up here, or at least cleaner than it was. There was only kind of two real snags. These gaskets, they were pretty well ruined, so it took me a little while to make some new gaskets here. And this jet here, this is a straw that goes down into the bowl and draws out of the bowl, and it was cracked right here and split. And so I messed around and soldered it back together. It's not real pretty, but I think it'll hold. I don't know, we'll find out. If it lets go again, it lets go. Maybe I'll order one if they're available. But everything else looks pretty good. So, you know, put it back together here. There you go, that'll get us by for now with a temporary tank. And going back to the bottom of this thing, so there's a little bit of passageways and stuff here that it utilizes, so you kind of got to make sure it's oriented sort of correctly, I think. And if you're wondering why I went through the effort to clean this carburetor and not clean up the exterior, it's because that's all I did. I just cleaned the inside. It's not rebuilt. If I rebuilt it, maybe it would be different. Pulled the shafts out and rebushed them and stuff. But this one just needed to be clean on the inside, not the outside. Back over here on the tractor, we just want to make sure these linkages are all free. And this one is not. This cross piece is seized up. It won't go, this won't turn. So we're gonna have to get a little heat up there on each side and see if we can get it to come loose. After a couple rounds of heat and penetrating oil and working it with some vice grips on this side over here, we got it moving again. I feel like that kind of says how, you know, much wear this thing's got overall. If that shaft isn't sloppy enough to be loose and it seizes up like that, this thing can't have that many overall hours on it, I wouldn't think. Gasket still looks to be in good condition up here on the manifold, so I'm just going to reinstall this guy. Except I installed the bottom wrong. Let's try that again. This bottom piece needs turned 90 degrees. That's my bad. Something else I noticed here, there's no screw or spring. There should be something here that'll, like that's like full open and that's full choke. There should be something here to kind of grab that, and there's not. So let me get a tap and we'll clean that out and we'll put a new screw and spring on it. I'm kind of guessing 1024 thread. Feels right. All right, that's bottomed out. Let's find something to tighten that up. There, that's not factory, but it's a whole lot better than nothing. And now we won't have the choke rod flopping around. Okay, for the whateverth try this is now, let's try to actually put it on. Fork lined up back there. I know you probably can't see any of this, but I can't see it either, so we're in the same boat. Somewhere down there's a little hole for a cotter pin. And I'm gonna have to find it. Ooh, there we go. Well, I lightly cleaned up these spark plugs with the sandblaster, so I'm just gonna put them back in. We can crank this thing over and see if all that oil soaking in the cylinders has given us any more compression. I kind of doubt it, but we can see. Give it a couple cranks, see how it feels. 3 of them have a little bit of compression. So let's hook up a fuel tank. Maybe it'll fire off. Right up around the filler neck. Attach that to the carburetor. Some fuel in it. Only the best, 9-phenol 90, and the most expensive. Turn the fuel on and we'll see if that needle and seat are going to work correctly. A couple taps just in case. I'm going to set this valve cover back on because if and when it fires up, this is full of rust, the fan is full of rust. It's going to throw it all over. I don't really want to throw it inside the engine. Even a little worried about this being open, but should be okay. I'm going to vacuum up anything loose, so hopefully it doesn't fly around. I've got the spark plug wires reattached. We got the Magneto, I believe, firing and firing where it belongs. Everything has some kind of oil in it and isn't full of water. No stuck valves. A slight bit of compression. There is some coolant in the radiator, but we get it started, it's not going to run long. Fuel system, as far as the carburetor, we're clean there now. Let's check and see if we've got, yep, we've got fuel in the carburetor. And we've got extra strength Valvoline starting fluid. What we could do, we could add a little bit up here. But I think just spraying it down in the intake will help prime it up without too much issue. But I'm willing to give it a couple cranks and see what happens. Give it just a little bit of throttle. And right there, it's just cracked open a little bit. I'm going to try some spark fluid right in the cup here. And we'll shoot a little down the intake. With like 0 compression, we need all the help we can get. Oh, did you see that? Alright. We got a pop. Definitely gaining a little compression on one of them. Oh, it's gaining just a little compression every revolution. Just put a little lubrication on that hand crank, make it easier to turn. Almost. It's got 1 or 2 cylinders kind of carried. Oh, we almost had it. Oh. Anything but it swap out. It's kind of tiring. Whew. Closer. It wants to go. Okay. Here's one kick back. I'll take a break before I break a wrist. Whew. Be a whole lot easier just to pull start, but at this point I'm kind of determined just to crank it. Alright, I got the plug wires pulled out. So I can just windmill this thing over and kind of clear it out a little bit, hopefully. Whew. Yeah, that's got way more compression than it had. Shoot. Let's figure out which hole it's dead on. Switched around. These will work. Really don't want to get bit by that thing. Okay, so I got temp is real hot, but we got good oil pressure. I don't know if it's got a thermostat in there or not. I want to try to drive it here. I'm not sure if the clutch is stuck or not. We'll find out. But I mean, she ain't running too bad. So let me get a milk crate sit on and we'll see if we can give it a little whirl. We'll spin. Way better than the raccoon infested mess that was on it. Okay, so here's hoping the clutch is not seized. Well, it sounds like it did something. Ooh, it went into 8th gear. Ooh, I don't remember which one's which. Sure we don't kill it. Is there a reverse? I don't remember where reverse is at. Try it. There we go. Let's see if we can find 3rd gear here. That might be 3rd. No, that don't feel like 3rd. Oh. Maybe that's 3rd. No, that's probably 1st. There's road gear. A little fast for what we're doing. The steering clutches are funky, with the clutch being on the left. Oh, don't die on me now, girl. Keep going. Maiden voyage in the snow. That's not the best thing for the first time out, but that's cool. Let's see if we can get it driven back into the barn here. It doesn't seem terribly happy, but since 1978, and we're running and driving. The clutches are working. She could use a little love, pumping a little smoke there, but yeah, that's pretty cool. You gotta love it. Find something this old, this far from now, and think that you would ever get it to run this easily. You know, these are so simple that it just makes it fun to mess with them. Bring it back inside. Still got good oil pressure, still a little too hot. Ouch! Well, it's supposed to kill it, but it's grounding it through my finger. There we go. There's a little sprayer right there leaking out of the radiator, so I don't know, the core might be in worse shape than I think it is, but we'll catch that and filter it and just put it right back in. Might be able to put a little bit of something in there to clog it up. But check that out, guys. It's last ran in the winter of 1978, and you just saw it run and drive for the first time since then. Isn't that pretty and crazy? It's not pretty, it's not running super. It don't seem like the cooling system is working perfectly. Doesn't seem like the carburetor is working perfectly. Although the oil pump seems to be doing real good. We've got good oil pressure. The tracks are limbered up a little bit, and you can see the actual, how bad these rails are worn. You can already see where it's shining up on the top of those pin bosses, starting to smack them right on the pin there. But that's okay. Shut the fuel off here. Did not check that hydraulic unit out. I can crank her back up later and fiddle around with that kind of stuff. But if that's something you all are interested in, let me know, because I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this thing. I didn't really need it. I wasn't really looking for it. It's not in superb shape. You know, the undercarriage is, I do think you could gain a lot of use if you built these front idlers up a bit. Probably that would probably gain you the most adjustment back into it. Definitely plenty of wear there left to play around and plow and maybe pull a little grader at a show or something, but it's definitely not a show queen by any means at this point, unless you like old and crusty. At that point, yeah, we've got that going for us. But let's go through, what does this thing still need? You know, that's the answer to that is basically everything. You'd probably, if I wanted to play with this thing, like for a full day, pull a plow or something, I would want to service it front to back and do whatever I can to make sure nothing else is going wrong with it. But if that happens, it would be a full fluid change. We got to fix this leak in the radiator. Possibly fix the thermostat or something going wrong up top. Kind of rough running. Not sure. We'll have to see if that's in the fuel system or what's going on, but it seemed the longer I ran it there, the rougher it got. But running it off this little nurse tank right into that carburetor, there shouldn't be anything wrong with it, but it could just be something as close to, got to mess with the adjustments a little bit. Then I did not do that, so they're pretty much right where it was, so they could be fair bit off. But need a full service. We'd need engine oil change. We'd want rear final drives changed, transmission changed. We'd want to go through, grease all of our undercarriage here. Got the all the lubricating points here. I've got the equipment to do that. The what else? That fuel tank is going to kind of be a project of its own. Probably going to have to either do a lot of brazing, welding, or cut that bottom section out and put a new piece in it. The fuel system, this valve would really need to be gone through to be worked correctly. The fuel pump, I did see it squirting some fuel out that may have been in the line, but I'm guessing that this thing is not, the diaphragm's probably bad in it. And you only need this when you're running on slopes or something, so you don't, this isn't necessary to have. So realistically, we could just pull this off, put a block off plate on that housing, and we wouldn't have to worry about that fuel pump at all, because we're in Ohio and we don't have hills in the part that I live. So that fuel pump's not a big deal, but I would like to make it so the you could switch between the distillate and the fuel. Not that I'd run it on it, but I'd want the tanks cleaned out so they were usable. What else? We'd want to check out this hydraulic system, and if it is working correctly, we want to put some modern ISO style couplers on it that we could run equipment with. Probably go through and adjust these steering clutches. They're not even. This one, I believe, is a little farther forward than it should be, so it's probably got some more wear on it. But that's all internally. Adjust the brakes. The right brake wants to kind of hang up on it, so we'll have to address that as well. But there's a ton of stuff to do on this thing, and I think they made what was it, 15 or 30,000 of these. I think it might have just been 15, but they're not rare, but they did make them in the 30s, and a lot of them have been scrapped since then. And this one is not in terrible condition. The fenders are decent. It's got the side tin. The hood is really good, aside from somebody ran a screw through it right there, but it's really good shape. Air cleaner's intact. It's pretty much all there. So is it worth fixing up? Would you guys be interested in seeing this thing, you know, maybe mechanically restored? I don't know. I kind of like the crusty look to it, but I'm sure as soon as you start getting into that fuel tank and stuff, you're going to be just paint it. And, you know, I'm not a big guy on restorations, but I do enjoy getting things going to the point where you can take them and work them like they were made back in the day. So what do y'all think about this thing? Is it worth investing more time and money into? It's probably not worth much in general. You could probably buy one of these things gone through with a good undercarriage and restored for a few $1,000s, and you'd have everything you needed. But if there's enough interest, I might go farther with this machine. Maybe we'll get it going and get it to the point where you could reliably take it to a plow day or a construction show, pull a grader, something like that. Or do you think it's just, you know, we saved another one, it's not going to the scrap, it's not going to be a pile of parts, it's now can be sent to its next home, hopefully somebody who would restore it. Regardless of what happens next with this thing, I hope you all enjoyed getting this thing going again. Like I said, it last ran in the winter of 1978, and it is here in November of 2025, running again, running and driving, stopping, doing all the stuff it's really designed to do. And I think that is just really impressive. When you see new machines today, they're just not simple enough. This will never happen with a brand new D4 that they produce today. You're not gonna see this many years from now something that sat this long come back to life. So this old historic iron like this is really neat to play with like this. So I'm just happy to get it going, and I really do hope you all enjoyed seeing it come back to life. If you do like that kind of stuff, I've got a whole bunch of other videos on the channel. Just check them out. Revivals, bringing things back to life. That old Alice Chalmers back there, we brought that in, cleaned it up, went through it, took it to a plow day, all kinds of stuff like that. So check out the channel, subscribe if you're not already, leave a comment. You got any memories with old machines like this or getting something going? And leave a like. Don't cost anything, and we just it really helps the video do better and more people see this kind of stuff. And hopefully we can save more old iron just like this one. Anyhow, I appreciate y'all watching, and I hope I see you on the next one.